Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski. He's a best-selling author. Who would ever thunk it? Got to buy his books, Let Trump Beat Trump. You can get it on Amazon or your favorite bookstore. You can go to our website, johnfredericksradio.com. You can get it there. Also, Trump's Enemies. Both books, the president said, were the best-written books on the campaign and the deep state. The president said that himself. So go buy them, and then you have them, and you can read them, and then you're going to be up to date. And they predicted all this stuff in Trump's Enemies. Joining us now, Corey Lewandowski. Great to have you with us, Corey.
John, it is great to be with you. Good morning.
Good. Well, I just want to know that I'm holding the embassy down here by myself, although I did have to put the heat up. I don't know where you are, but it was a little chilly here today. But I'm holding the fort, Corey.
Well, thank you. I'm in Gulfport, Mississippi today, campaigning for one of the original Trump supporters, Dane Maxwell, who was the mayor of Pascagoula. He's running for public service commissioner in Mississippi. I flew down here because the one thing that your listeners know is when you're a Trump supporter, you get the support of the Trump team. So I came down here to help him run for public service commissioner. We have elections in Mississippi this year. It's one of the 3 states that has the off-year elections. So I'm down campaigning here for a couple days.
Well, that is fantastic, Corey, for public service commissioner. And I know he was one of the first guys with you early on, so it's great that you're down there helping him out. How are what's his opportunity to win?
Look, the election down here, the primary's in August, so I think he's going to do very well in the primary. He's the mayor of the 3rd largest city in the state. The public service commissioner represents 27 counties, so it's a big area, and it's an important spot. And Dane is one of these guys who's a hard worker. And look, I wouldn't be in Gulfport, Mississippi right now if it wasn't important. So this is important to move the Trump agenda forward. So I'm here for it.
All right. Well, we'll be following Dane, and we're happy you're there. I've got to get to the Mueller report coming out Sunday, complete exoneration for the president. But look, Corey, we have to keep saying this because people have to understand what this was. 2 years, 25 million, 2,800 subpoenas, 500 search warrants, 505 witnesses, 230 communication confiscations, 13 foreign countries involved, surveillance, eavesdropping, wiretapping, 19 lawyers, 39 FBI investigators, and they have nothing. What was the deal with this?
And a partridge in a pear tree, John, right? I mean, they threw the kitchen sink at us, don't forget. They did every single thing humanly possible to take down this duly elected president when all they had to do was ask a couple simple questions. Hey, Corey Lewandowski, did you ever collude with the Russians? Did you ever work with any Russians? Did you ever have a white Russian? Did you ever have Russian salad dressing? My answer would have been no to all of those things. And that would have been the end of this investigation. But they didn't, because this whole thing was perpetuated by the Clinton campaign, who paid for the dossier that Christopher Steele put together for Fusion GPS. It was handed to Bruce Orr at the Department of Justice, who took that and walked it into either Jim Comey or Andy McCabe's office and said, hey, Donald Trump won this election because he colluded with the Russians. And, John, the biggest story, which nobody wants to be reminded of, is that when Donald Trump was a candidate in 2016, he was a private citizen. He had no elected experience. He had no authority over the government. So if the Russians did try to impact the outcome of the election, that's on Barack Obama's watch. That's on James Comey's watch. It's on Clapper and Brennan's watch. These guys, the Brennans and the Comeys and the Clappers, went on television hundreds of times and said that they were unequivocally certain there was collusion, right? These are the morons who are running our intelligence community. If they're the ones that we were relying on, no wonder why our system fails. Because Brennan and Comey and Clapper, time and time and time again, told the American people unequivocally Donald Trump cheated. And now the Mueller report has come out and has vindicated the president and has validated everything that we have said from day one. And I sure hope that Attorney General Barr and Inspector General Horowitz hold these people accountable for their lies and the crimes that they committed, not just against the president and his family and our campaign, but against the American people.
Corey, what would be the vehicle to hold them accountable?
I think you need to prosecute. I really do. And I'll tell you what, we know for sure that the FISA applications that were submitted by some of the people at the Department of Justice were clearly not only inaccurate, but they had lies on them. And those lies are equivalent to perjury, because you have to swear to those FISA applications under the penalty of perjury. Now, you can say that you weren't aware of it, but you shouldn't be signing a document that we know was factually inaccurate. And I call on the President again to declassify those specific pages of the FISA application, the last renewal that was done in June of 2017. The American people should see that. They should see exactly the type of evidence that they presented to the FISA court. And then the people who put that document together should be held accountable. And if I was a FISA judge, I would be irate right now knowing that they used me to try and spy on Americans, not to try, to spy on Americans because they didn't like their politics. And I think those judges should be irate. They should refer these people for criminal prosecution. Andy McCabe has already been referred for criminal prosecution, but there should be more. We know that they lied. We know that they leaked classified information. We know this whole thing was designed to help Hillary Clinton and to justify why she lost the election.
Corey, what about the innocent people like yourself who are dragged through various committee hearings, subpoenas, that had to spend a lot of money and time on lawyers and defense like yourself and Hope, Hicks, and others for no reason? What is the accountability to that?
John, there's none, unfortunately. They use the full weight of the federal government, okay, the Department of Justice, the FBI, dozens of attorneys to come after people like us because they didn't like our politics. And I've got 4 kids, and I grew up in a town called Lowell, Massachusetts, which is not a very wealthy area. And to have to incur hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to prove my innocence when no crime was committed, there is no recourse. My best recourse is going to be the day that James Comey and Andy McCabe get put in jail, and Peter Strzok and Lisa Page get put in jail, and Brennan and Clapper and those guys have to hire their own attorneys for the lies that they told to Congress, which we call perjury, the lies that they've told to the American people. I want to see them all held accountable. And I'm not kidding, because the money which I've had to spend to defend myself against something I never did would have put my children through college. And if that doesn't scare the American people, it should, because that's what the federal government does to people. They have unlimited resources, and those people use their jobs and their positions of influence and their guns and their badges to go after us because they didn't like us. And it should never, ever happen again. And I will make this prediction, John. This goes all the way to the top of the previous administration. If you look at our book, Trump's Enemies, we asked the president, who do you think knew what? And his answers are in that book. We did a verbatim conversation with the president and Trump's enemies, and it will shock the American people. I think this went all the way to Susan Rice. Ben Rhodes, the Deputy National Security Advisor, went all the way to the top of the previous administration. They knew about it. They were complicit in it, and they didn't care. And it cost me and many. Look, Mike Flynn went bankrupt, right? Other people have gone bankrupt because of this for things that we never did anything wrong. It costs us hundreds of thousands of dollars and collectively millions and millions of dollars to defend yourself against a crime you didn't commit.
Well, think about this for our listeners out there. Corey Lewandowski runs a campaign. He's got a family. He's got 4 children. And so he did absolutely nothing wrong at any time. And yet he has to spend several, get this, $100,000 of his own money. There's no legal fund. There's no GoFundMe. He had to just, mortgage his home or something. Spend hundreds of thousands of dollars defending himself for something he didn't do. Not only didn't do it, he didn't have anything to do with any of it. And yet it cost you several $100,000 to defend yourself with all these subpoenas. There's got to be a better way to do this, man, because that is just criminal behavior, what they put you through. And what happens if they had somebody that didn't even have access to that kind of money that could get a lawyer? What would have happened?
Well, John, let me tell you what happened, right? Look, I don't know how all of the other defendants have to do it, like me, but when the attorney says, "Hey, write me a check for $25,000 or $50,000 as my retainer, I'll start working off of that." I don't know who. Look, a lot of people don't have that kind of money, right?
Right.
And I still haven't paid all those legal bills, and I'm not. Look, I understand Roger Stone's predicament and Jerome Corsi, but look, they tried to implicate Dr. Jerome Corsi, and they tried to get him to sign a plea deal for something he never did. He held firm, by the way, and then they didn't prosecute him. They tried to get him to agree to something he never did. It cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees. All of these committee hearings, Adam Schiff and the House and the Senate committees, and I've been very clear and very public. I've testified in front of now on at least 3 occasions, twice in front of the House and once in front of the Senate. And to protect yourself against these things, you have to have your attorney with you. And it's just outrageous the way that this thing works, and there has to be a better way. And I'll tell you what, as much as I hated spending the money, because I knew I did nothing wrong, and I hate the fact that that was the money that I would use to put my children through college and take care of my family, I will be resolved and I will be happy if there is true accountability from the people who perpetuated these crimes against us, and that's Comey and Brennan and McCabe and Strzok and Page. And if one of those guys goes to jail for the crimes that they committed, it'll all be worth it, unfortunately.
It's really unbelievable. And for the people that, couldn't write that $50,000 check for a retainer right off the bat, I mean, they're defenseless, right? They don't have a defense, and they're on their own. And so they're even more vulnerable. And that's why then the government goes and tries to get a plea for something they didn't do simply because they can't afford an attorney. Or, they have to go bankrupt. I mean, you look what happened to General Flynn. I mean, he was a general in the United States military with a sterling record, and he's got a pension and all that. And now he's bankrupt. He doesn't even have a house. He's broke. It's sick.
And John, and the converse of that is, right? Jim Comey went out and wrote a book and made $1 million+ off it. Andy McCabe went out and wrote this book and made millions of dollars off of their crimes, John, literally their crimes.
Right.
They committed crimes. We know it for sure, and they get rich off of it. And so, look, I want Inspector General Horowitz to hold these people accountable. I don't understand the fact that Andrew McCabe has 3 criminal referrals against him sent to the Department of Justice and has not been acted on yet. And I'm hopeful that Attorney General Barr was simply waiting for the Mueller report to be finalized before he moved on those recommendations. But now that the report is done, it's finalized and is behind us, I hope the Attorney General and the rest of the Department of Justice starts to hold these people accountable for the perjury and the lying that they did under oath, because if that were me or you, John, we'd be in jail already.
Should he name a special prosecutor, Corey?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. I have full faith in Attorney General Barr. He's a man of the utmost character. I don't think he needs that. I think they know the crimes that have already been committed. I saw Congressman Pete King from Long Island tweeted out that maybe some of these former government employees should lose their pensions. I agree with them. If they are convicted of crimes, they should lose their pensions. Absolutely. Andy McCabe was fired from the FBI, an organization which he reveres and talks about in his book as the greatest organization ever. They fired him.
Right.
Peter Strzok, Lisa Page, Jim Baker, the former general counsel there, all fired or moved on. The only accountability is losing their job, but they're still free to walk around. They're still free to commit the crimes that they committed with impunity. They have not been charged. They have not spent any time in jail, and they're out getting rich, and it's not right.
It's sick. That's what it is. This whole thing is sick, and I think it's exposing the entire government apparatus. And what basically you had here is a group of people, and as you said, the president believes started at the top and then went down, trying to undermine first the candidacy of Donald Trump and then the presidency. And none of this has even been taken seriously by the legacy lying mainstream media. The legacy media, Corey, big loser in this whole thing. I mean, they perpetuated this lie for months and months and months on TV. Now your old friend Sucker, the head of CNN, says, well, we're not investigators. What the hell is he talking about when all they did for a 2-year period was tell us there was evidence and the president was going to be impeached or indicted? Aren't they accountable to that?
John,
Zuckerman?
The media is the biggest loser in this. Look, CNN ran 908 more stories on the Russia collusion narrative hoax than they did on the historic tax cuts that were passed. The New York Times did 644 more stories on the Russia fake collusion hoax than they did on the renegotiation of NAFTA. And when you look at the combination of the New York Times, the Washington Post, CNN, and MSNBC, they ran 8,500 articles on the fake Russian narrative. That amounted to 13 articles a day about something which was a total farce. And now their answer is, well, we just report the news. We don't have an obligation to vet and see if it's accurate or not. John, these guys are the worst losers when it comes to this whole narrative. But the great part is, this is going to help President Trump. Because as we go into the 2020 election and the media continues to malign him and his family and say these crazy things that we know are unequivocally not true, the American people are going to say, oh, once again, they're lying to us. They lied to us saying that he couldn't win the election. They lied to us and told us that there was Russia collusion, and now they're lying to us again. So this is only going to help the president. And to be clear, John, CNN has an entire team dedicated to doing investigations, called their K-file or whatever it is. All they do is investigations, and it should be their obligation as journalists, if that's what they are. If they're truly journalists, then they should go and have to get this information. And when Brennan, the former head of the CIA, is now walking back his statements, I guess I got some bad information. He was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, and he's a CNN commentator, I believe, and he was 100% unequivocal that there was Russia collusion, right? These people need to be fired, and all these people who for 1 year, 10 months, and 6 days said, the walls are closing in, the walls are closing in, it's the beginning of the end. They have zero credibility left, absolutely zero credibility left in the media, and they want to pass the buck and say, well, we were just following the facts. They weren't following the facts, John. They were setting a narrative because they hate this president more than they love their country.
There's no question about it. This was a narrative set, and it was a complete hoax. But I tell you, the story, the untold story, is the money that yourself and other innocent people had to spend on defending yourself with lawyers having done nothing. I mean, look, I was there in the campaign. You did nothing wrong. I mean, it's not even close. Like, maybe you made a phone call. You did nothing but run the campaign. And the fact that you've had to spend your kid's college fund defending yourself is outrageous, man. It is just outrageous. And these people should be brought to justice. I think you got to get a special counsel. I don't mind spending the other $10 million on that, because look, if it happened now, if we don't stop this, as the president said, it's going to continue to happen. Just because there's a candidate they don't like, they can now go after them in this way and destroy everybody around them. You know that there were people that were asked to go to work for the president who said, I can't afford the legal fees. Remember that? I mean, good people. I just can't take the chance.
This is how you keep good people out of government service. And by the way, listen to the narrative from the left now. All of this was started because George Papadopoulos, who's a volunteer in the Trump campaign, went overseas and had a conversation in a bar. If that's the criteria for opening up an investigation on a political opponent, then let me caution every Democrat volunteer who's working on a presidential campaign right now, don't go to a bar, don't drink, because let me tell you something. If Donald Trump had done what they did to us, to his opponent in the 2020 election, if he did the same thing, it would be called treason, and they would have him in jail right now for it. But because it was done to Trump and our team, there is no accountability yet. But let me tell you, a day of reckoning is coming. You mark my words. John, right after this report came out, I was getting phone calls from the media saying, don't you think it's just time to put this behind us? The president should be presidential. Let me tell you what they tried to do, and let me just put it in the most straightforward terms I can give you. This was a drive-by shooting. This was guys driving by in a car and trying to literally kill us, okay? And then it's like us taking down the license plate and reporting the problem. No, there's nothing to see here. Don't worry, you guys have been vindicated. They tried to destroy our lives, literally and figuratively, every way that they could. And now the media's narrative is, hey, just let it go. Don't worry about it. You guys won. Really? We didn't win yet. We will win when the people who perpetuated these crimes against us are in jail, and that's coming.
We're out of time. Corey Lewandowski, thanks for being with us. I really appreciate it. Buy Corey's book, Let Trump Be Trump and Trump's Enemies. You can get it. Just go to my website, johnfredericksradio.com. Order it there. Thank you for being with us, man. We'll see you next week.
Always, my friend. Thank you.